It's the Bruins and the Red Wings in round one of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll break down what to look for in the series, plus we'll tell you about all of the other matchups around the NHL. Welcome to Bruins Daily TV. I'm Erica Lee here alongside Tim Rosenthal and Dan St. Pierre today from Studio 73 at Suffolk University. And guys, it's time for playoff hockey.
Bring it on.
It's about time.
My favorite time of the year.
Absolutely. There's nothing better. Lock it down. You're going into work on 3 hours of sleep. Get ready for it.
3 hours of sleep, if that.
If that. So let's get into some specifics here. The Bruins are the #1 seed in the East with a 54-19-9 regular season record. And Detroit comes in as the 8th seed with a record of 39-28-15. Some guys who can seriously make an impact here. We know David Krejci has some serious numbers in the playoffs, and he has a history of excellence in the postseason. I think that top line with Milan Lucic and Jerome McGinley is probably the best first line in the NHL right now.
I think you hit that right on the head, and I think it's an upgrade from last year over Nathan Horn, with all due respect to Nathan Horn for that matter. But I think McGinley has really made Krejci and Lucic better players this year. Krejci, I believe, had a career year this year, maybe not in terms of numbers, but just in terms of productivity, leading the Bruins again in scoring. I think the best is obviously yet to come for Krejci. And Milan Lucic, even though he didn't have as many goals this year, he did get over the 20-goal plateau, unlike last year where he seemingly struggled at every facet of the game right up until playoff time where he picked it up a little bit. So, and definitely he's, you might not see it on a stat sheet, but he's contributing in other areas. He's being physical, he's taking the play, to the front of the net, he's skating hard, and I think the best might be yet to come for Milan Lucic as well.
Yeah, I mean, Bruins fans are finally going to get the day they were waiting for, and that's Jerome McGinley in a Bruins uniform for a playoff game. To me, all the spotlight's sitting on Jerome because he did put up 12 points, and I believe it was 15 to 16 different playoff games for the Penguins last year, where essentially it was a lost cause in. So you're kind of wondering where the momentum he's built alongside Krejci and Lucic, that you're looking at a very destructive, very dynamic line heading into the first round of the playoffs against a very, very speedy and quick Detroit team.
Now looking over at the Wings, they've got Gustav Nyquist, who we know has burned the Bruins in the past and has been great for them so far this season. The only disadvantage is that he's only had 18 postseason appearances so far.
At the same time, as you mentioned, he's one of the speedier guys on the Red Wings, even with all the injuries that they've had. Former UMaine product, was a Hobie finalist a few years ago, and I think he's really a 3-2 player. I mean, good offensively. Had he played a full season, you might discuss him for a potential Hart Trophy candidate, I believe. And then defensively, he's pretty sound in his own end, and special teams, he can strike as well. So that's one of the X factors, I think, for Red Wings if they want to pull off the upset, for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely an intriguing player on that team. He's got all the speed in the world, essentially, but he is a talented player. But to me, where he capitalizes a lot is more on defensive mistakes or coaching mistakes. There's a couple times where he's gotten behind the Bruins' defense in the middle of a bad line change, and they've capitalized on that. And you know, if you're pretty sound back there defensively, I know as cliche as it may sound, as long as they stick to the positions and they man their own side of the ice, that a Nyquist, that type of guy, is not going to get behind them.
Layers.
Absolutely. Name of the game.
Let's talk a little bit about goaltending. Tuukka Rask had the best goals against average at .204 this season and save percentage with .930 among netminders the regular season. His numbers obviously speak for themselves. Jimmy Howard hasn't been quite as consistent this season as he's been in the past, but we know he can get very dominant, especially in the postseason.
Absolutely. Yeah, you look what he did last year again, beating the Anaheim Ducks in 7 games and putting the Red Wings on the brink of knocking off the top-seeded Blackhawks. But unfortunately, I think things kind of fell apart for Howard and the defense there. And Detroit, they're not as strong defensively as the Bruins. We all know that going into this matchup. We all know Jimmy Howard isn't as strong as Tuukka Rask, but he can steal a game or two. And the Red Wings can get healthy. Maybe if they can get Zetterberg back somehow before the second round, that certainly could help Jimmy Howard a little bit.
Yeah, first off, make no mistake about it, Jimmy Howard is not Tuukka Rask. Jimmy Howard is good. He's excelled in every playoff series that he's appeared in through the years. So he's getting better every series, but he's not Tuukka Rask, and he's not a guy who's going to steal more than one game for the Red Wings during this series.
All right. Well, I think we could go on and on here about the matchup from the defensemen to the coaching. But on paper, to me, it looks like Boston clearly has the edge here. Can they make it happen?
I believe so. I believe you're going to see him win. I'm surprisingly going to pick him in 7 just because of Detroit's experience. But at the same time, I think this Bruins team has the talent edge a little bit over the Red Wings, something we might not have said in the past.
Yeah, there's too many panic buttons being pushed. I got the Bruins in a sweep in 4 games. No Zetterberg, no problem. They're going to roll the Red Wings.
There you go.
I'll go in the middle here, Bruins in 6. But let's hear what some of our viewers think of this first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs in the East. Over on Twitter, playoff-bound Brad says the Bruins will win in 7 games. The Red Wings are a tough team, but he thinks the Bees will come out on top. Kyle Panette says the Bees have got this in 6 because they'll play tough physical hockey and wear the Wings down. He also says advantage to Rask. And Jake Brown agrees the Bruins have got this series in 6. They've been consistent all season and are the best team in the league. Over on Facebook, Mike Marco says it's because the Bruins are the beasts of the East and they'll have it in 6 games. Jason Foss has got the Bruins in 7 because Howard can be tough, but the combination of youth and vets the black and gold have will put them on top. And Anthony Mangini says the Bruins in 6 because all 4 lines are stronger than any other team in the league and they'll be able to slow down Detroit's star players. So I think Bruins in 6 wins on social media. Oddly enough, nobody said that Detroit is going to win this series.
I wonder why.
Regional bias, maybe.
Maybe.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to break down the other matchups around the NHL, and we'll give you our picks. That's next on Bruins Daily TV. We're back on Bruins Daily TV, and now it's time to talk about some of the playoff matchups around the rest of the NHL in the first round. Here in the East, we've got Columbus and Pittsburgh, along with Tampa Bay and Montreal, as well as New York and Philadelphia. So let's talk about which series we think is going to be the top matchup here.
It's not even going to be the ones you listed. It's going to be the one we talked about in the first segment, Bruins Red Wings. I believe this is the first time the 2 teams have met in the postseason since the 1950s. 2 original 6 matchups. First year, Detroit in the East. You have so many storylines going into this game, and I truly think it's going to be must-see TV.
Yeah, for me, it's not going to be the series that gets swept done in 4 games, but it will be the Rangers Flyers series, which is a little bit intriguing to me because there's 2 teams that have really excelled in the second half of the year and really dismal starts to the season. That, generally speaking, we know that to win the cup, to get to the cup, you got to be one of the hottest second half teams heading into the playoffs. So those 2 teams, to me, that's definitely going 7 games and absolute bloodbath.
Dan's so confident in his sweep, he might even take this bet to Vegas.
I might.
All right, we'll have to see. Over in the West, Anaheim and Dallas, San Jose and Los Angeles, Colorado and Minnesota, and St. Louis and Chicago. Obviously, the big matchup here is St. Louis and the Blackhawks. Let's talk a little bit about that.
One of the better rivalries in the first round is St. Louis and Chicago, with all due respect to the Rangers and Flyers, and if you want to call it that, Bruins, Red Wings. St. Louis got the best of them earlier in the season, but the Blackhawks have won the last 2. They're getting Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane back from injury for the postseason, and the Blues, they've been regressing over the last couple weeks, losers of 6 straight, and I don't think anyone who's entered the postseason on that kind of losing streak has gone far during the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, a month ago we're here with the trade deadline special, and I'm sitting here, I'm on that bandwagon, that St. Louis bandwagon, and we're at full capacity at that point, and now the tires have kind of broken down and the wheels are coming off, and St. Louis is a mess. They've lost 6 straight, and they're a favorite heading into that series against Chicago, and that's the defending Stanley Cup champions that they have in the first round. Even if they get out of there, I mean, which I don't think they're going to, but you know what I mean, even if they did, they're essentially done in that first round.
Flat tires and all, you think we should send this show to Roberto Luongo so he can tweet it out?
Very well done.
All right. Well, of course, as you mentioned, Chicago in this series is defending their Stanley Cup, so I think that'll be a bit of a motivating factor for them as well. It's time for us to make our picks. Who do you guys see in the East? Who do you see in the West?
I'm going to go with the rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Final, Bruins and Penguins. I do think the Bruins do get the upper hand over the Penguins. Evgeny Malkin's going to be coming back too, so they're going to at least have two productive scoring lines. And I do believe Marc-Andre Fleury is going to bounce back after a couple of rough playoffs. I think he's going to be solid. I think he's been solid this year for the Penguins, especially after Jacques Martin came over from Montreal a couple years ago. He's the head coach there. He's an assistant now. I think he's really helped him in his redevelopment, shall we say. So, but at the end of the day, Tuukka Rask is going to stand tall. The Bruins have too much depth even for this Penguins team. I got the Bruins in 6 over the Penguins, and I'm going to go Blackhawks over the Sharks rather in the West. And we're going to have a rematch of the Stanley Cup Final. Bruins in 7 over Blackhawks. We're owed to Game 7 of that series after last year.
To start off in the Western Conference, I'm looking at a final of the Blackhawks versus the Sharks. In the Eastern Conference, it's strictly for me. It's the Penguins have too many question marks and too many guys that are coming in and out of their lineup throughout the last couple of weeks. There's too many question marks for me to bank on a team like that going through a very tough Eastern Conference. For me, it's all about the original 6 teams in the East this year, and my Eastern Conference Finals would be the Rangers versus the Bruins, and the Bruins in 6 games. In the Western Conference, it's the Blackhawks and the Sharks coming out of that in 5 games.
And your Stanley Cup Final, Jumbo Joe
finally gets to the Cup, and he makes his return to Boston just to make a short appearance there and only playing 5 games in the Cup as a runner-up.
Come up short again, Joe Thornton, why don't you?
All right. I've got the Bruins and the Rangers, with the Bruins in 6 here, with the Blackhawks in 7 for another rematch of our Stanley Cup Final from last year, with the Bruins winning in 7 games. What do you think?
Can't complain there. I mean, as long as the Bruins winning, I just want to sit out there and watch a couple duck boats go streaming by again. Can't ever complain about that.
There you go. Would be a nice pre-wedding present for you and your fiance there.
Oh, absolutely. And, more importantly, it's always nice to watch Jumbo Joe kind of cave into the pressures of the playoffs around him.
Oh, of course.
All right, well, we'll have to see how all of this plays out in the next week or so. And that is going to do it for us today on Bruins Daily TV. For our crew here at Studio 73, that's Tim Rosenthal and Dan St. Pierre. I'm Erica Lee, and we'll catch you next time on Bruins Daily TV.
We belong together. We stand proud and true. Remember when I said that I'd always be